Welcome, dear brothers and sisters, to a journey unlike any other. A journey into the story of Ashabul Kahfi, the young believers whose faith defied an entire kingdom and became one of the greatest miracles preserved in the Qur'an. Allah Himself opens their story with these powerful words. Do you think that the people of the cave and the inscription were a wonder among our signs? Ashab Al Kahf 18:9. Have you ever wondered what it truly means to hold on to faith when the world around you is drowning in darkness? Have you ever thought about how a small group of youths could challenge a powerful empire, escape oppression, and be honored by Allah with a miracle that transcended centuries? Before we begin, I want to know, where are you watching from? Are you joining us from Jakarta, Kuala Lumpur, the Middle East, Africa, Europe, or the Americas? Write your city or country in the comments. Let's see how far this message of faith has reached around the world. And while you're here, if you want to continue exploring stories filled with wisdom, inspiration, and divine guidance, make sure to subscribe to our channel and turn on the notification bell. You won't want to miss the lessons and reflections waiting for you in every chapter. In this series, we will walk through the entire journey of the people of the cave, from their struggle against a corrupt society to their flight for faith, their miraculous sleep across centuries, and the timeless message they left behind for all believers. So join me as we step into a world shaped by courage, trust, and divine protection. Are you ready to uncover the miracle of the cave and the lessons it holds for our hearts today? Then let's begin. There was a time in human history when certain empires rose to great heights of power, yet beneath their strength lay an emptiness that consumed their people. In one such ancient kingdom, a cloud of spiritual darkness spread through the land. The rulers were powerful but arrogant, demanding that their subjects worship idols carved by their own hands. False gods filled every marketplace, every hall of authority, and every corner of daily life. Truth was buried, justice was ignored, and those who questioned the prevailing beliefs faced hostility and persecution. As Allah describes the injustice of those who invent falsehoods, and who is more unjust than he who invents a law against Allah? Surah Al-Kahf 18:15. Amid this crumbling moral landscape lived a group of young men, each one gifted with intelligence, clarity of thought, and a heart sensitive to the truth. They looked at the world around them and realized that something was terribly wrong. They saw their people bowing to lifeless statues, pleading to objects that could neither harm nor benefit them. Their hearts recoiled from these practices, and although they were young, their faith in the oneness of Allah began to grow silently and powerfully within them. Allah beautifully describes their faith. Indeed, they were youths who believed in their Lord, and we increased them in guidance. Surah Al-Kahf 18:13. They did not arrive at this realization through pressure or tradition. They were surrounded by an environment that opposed everything they believed. Yet the purity of their hearts allowed them to recognize falsehood for what it was. Day after day, their inner conflict deepened. They loved their people, but they could not follow them into misguidance. They respected the elders of their community, but they could not accept beliefs that contradict reason, morality, and truth. Soon, their quiet belief became known to those around them. Their families whispered among themselves, worried that their sons were abandoning the faith of their ancestors. The authorities grew suspicious. In a society where conformity was demanded, the presence of even a small group of sincere believers was viewed as a threat. These young men were pressured to conform, warned to stay silent, and urged to return to idol worship. Yet their hearts would not bend. Their belief in Allah gave them a strength that defied their age. They refused to worship anything other than the Creator of the heavens and the earth. They knew that standing firm upon faith would come with a price, but they accepted that price with dignity and conviction. They echoed the same declaration Allah preserved in the Qur'an. Our Lord is the Lord of the heavens and the earth. Never will we invoke besides him any deity, for then we would have spoken an enormity. Surah Al Kahf 18:14. Little did they know that their faith would soon lead them on a journey unlike anything the world had ever witnessed, one that would echo through centuries and become a sign for all generations to come. As rumors about their growing faith spread, the pressure surrounding the young believers intensified. The ruling elite of the kingdom viewed any rejection of idol worship as a direct threat to their authority. To them, the idols symbolized unity, loyalty, and obedience to the regime. Anyone who turned away from these idols was not merely misguided, they were branded a rebel. Whispers of danger began circling around them. They heard warnings spoken behind closed doors. They felt the gaze of informants following them, studying their every move, watching for any sign of disobedience. Their families urged them to remain silent, to blend in, to avoid confrontation. But the flame of faith had already settled in their hearts. Silence was no longer possible. One day, they stood together and openly declared their belief. They proclaimed that their Lord was the Lord of the heavens and the earth, and that they would worship none but him. Their words were filled with honesty, conviction, and unwavering clarity. Yet those same words unleashed consequences. The kingdom turned against them. The ruler issued an ultimatum: renounce their faith or face punishment. This moment echoes their Quranic testimony. Our Lord is the Lord of the heavens and the earth. Never will we invoke besides him any deity. Surah Al Kahf 18:14. Realizing the danger now surrounding them, the young men gathered to discuss their fate. Remaining in the city meant facing oppression, humiliation, torture, or even death. But fleeing meant abandoning their homes, their families, their belongings, and every familiar comfort they had ever known. Yet they understood that faith was worth more than anything left behind. With hearts strengthened by trust in Allah, they agreed that their only path was to withdraw from the people and seek refuge elsewhere. They were not prophets, they were not scholars. They were simple young believers who refused to surrender the truth. Their decision echoes the divine guidance. And when you have withdrawn from them and from what they worship other than Allah, take refuge in the cave. Your Lord will spread out for you of his mercy and will make easy for you your affair. And so, before the sun rose, they slipped quietly out of the city. They carried almost nothing with them. No wealth, no weapons, only their faith and their shared commitment to the truth. Each step away from the kingdom felt heavy with uncertainty, yet light with spiritual certainty. They did not know where their journey would end, nor how long they would survive. But they believed that Allah sees every heart, hears every prayer, and protects those who place their trust in him. Their departure was the beginning of a miracle unlike anything the world had seen. The journey from the city carried the young believers across rough terrain and twisting paths. Their feet throbbed from the long walk, and their bodies grew weary, but their hearts remained firm. Every step they took was fueled by hope and trust. Hope that Allah would guide them, and trust that his promise never fails. The land around them stretched endlessly, silent and uncertain. Yet in their hearts, the light of faith burned stronger than any fear. They walked not knowing where their journey would end, but knowing exactly why they had begun it. After hours of wandering, they reached a large rocky hillside. Tucked between ancient stone formations was a cave, quiet, hidden, and untouched. It was small, dark, and without comfort. But to them, it felt like a doorway to safety. They stepped inside, and the silence of the cave wrapped around them. For the first time since fleeing the city, they felt a sense of protection wash over them. The world outside was filled with danger and hostility, But here, deep within the stone walls, peace settled gently in their hearts. They recognized immediately that this was no coincidence. Allah had guided their steps to this exact place. The Qur'an describes this divine moment with clarity. Behold, when the youths took refuge in the cave, they said, "Our Lord, grant us mercy from yourself and guide us in our affair rightly." Inside the cave's darkness, they raised their hands and prayed with full sincerity. Their voices trembled with humility as they begged Allah for mercy, protection, and a way forward. They had escaped danger, yet they were still vulnerable, alone, hunted, and uncertain of their fate. But their trust in Allah was complete. Soon after their prayer, exhaustion settled upon them like a heavy cloak. Their bodies, worn from fear and travel, could no longer endure the strain. One by one, they lay down, thinking they would rest for only a short while. But Allah had decreed something far beyond their understanding. Their simple sleep transformed into a miraculous state. Their breaths slowed, their limbs relaxed, and their inner selves entered a realm beyond human comprehension. Time began to flow differently around them. The Qur'an describes this miracle with profound power. So we cast a veil of sleep over their ears in the cave for a number of years. Surah Al Kahf 18:11. While they slept, the world continued to change. Generations rose and disappeared. Kingdoms shifted. People lived and died. But the young believers remained untouched, preserved by the command of Allah. The cave, once an ordinary shelter, became the cradle of a miracle that would echo across centuries. What began as an escape for safety became one of the greatest signs of Allah's mercy and power. Their story was no longer just their own. It became a divine message, a reminder to humanity that those who trust in Allah are never abandoned, and those who stand for the truth are protected in ways beyond imagination. As the young men slept, an extraordinary miracle unfolded, one that the human mind cannot fully grasp. Allah caused them to enter a deep, profound sleep that suspended them from the natural flow of time. While they rested inside the quiet darkness of the cave, the world outside continued its relentless cycle of change. Empires rose to greatness and crumbled into dust. Generations lived their lives, passed down traditions, and then vanished. Languages evolved, customs changed, and history turned its pages again and again. But inside the cave, nothing changed. The young men remained untouched by the passing centuries. Allah protected them in ways unseen. Their bodies were not subjected to decay or hunger. Their skin did not age, their limbs did not weaken. They were turned periodically, ensuring that their bodies remained preserved and unharmed, a detail mentioned in the Qur'an to emphasize the precision and care of divine protection. And you would have thought them awake while they were asleep, and we turned them to the right and to the left. Surah Al Kahf 18:18. The sunlight entered the cave at an angle that neither disturbed them nor harmed them. This reflects Allah's words. You see the sun when it rises, inclining away from their cave to the right, and when it sets, passing away from them to the left, while they lay in an open space within. Surah Al Kahf 18:17. Even their dog, who had accompanied them to the entrance of the cave, remained in a steadfast position, acting as a silent guardian throughout the centuries. This was no ordinary sleep. It was a miracle that demonstrated Allah's absolute control over time, life, and existence itself. Human beings live within the boundaries of time, but Allah is the creator of time. To Him, the past, present, and future are all known, all witnessed, all under His command. With a single command, Allah suspended the young men's existence and preserved them as a sign. As the Qur'an affirms, This was so that they might know that Allah's promise is true and that there is no doubt about the hour. Surah Al Kahf 18:21. Meanwhile, outside the cave, the kingdom they once fled had changed dramatically. The tyrant who threatened them had long died. The beliefs of the people shifted. The society that once condemned those who believed in the one true God eventually embraced that very faith. The world they knew had dissolved into history, and the people who once opposed them had become stories told by later generations. Yet the miracle inside the cave remained hidden, waiting for the moment Allah chose to reveal it. Their sleep was not simply a break from hardship, it was a sign for the future, a proof of Allah's power to resurrect, protect, and control all affairs. Their story was preserved so that one day it would awaken a new generation of believers and strengthen their faith. When the young men finally opened their eyes, they had no idea how much time had passed. To them, it felt as though they had slept only a short while. They were completely unaware that their awakening would unveil one of the greatest signs in human history. When the young men awoke, they rose from their sleep as if waking from a short rest. Their bodies felt normal, their minds alert, and nothing seemed unusual. They looked at one another and assumed they had slept perhaps a day or part of a day. Hunger returned to them, confirming their belief that only a short time had passed. This moment reflects their own question from the Qur'an. They said, "How long have you remained?" They said, "We have remained a day or part of a day." Surah Al Kahf 18:19. One of them offered to go to the city to buy food. They gave him money, ancient coins from a kingdom long gone, believing that nothing had changed. But the moment he entered the city, he sensed something was different. The buildings were unfamiliar, the clothing styles had changed, and the people spoke in ways he did not recognize. His heart raced. He wondered if he had wandered into a different marketplace by mistake. When he handed the shopkeeper the old coin, confusion spread across the man's face. The coin was from an era that had vanished centuries earlier. It was like someone today offering currency from a long extinct empire. Word spread quickly. Scholars, elders, and curious townspeople gathered around him. They questioned him gently, trying to understand where he had come from. The Quran captures this amazement. Let him look at which food is purest and bring you provision from it, but let him be cautious and let no one be aware of you. Surah Al Kahf 18:19. Yet the moment he appeared, Allah had already willed for their story to be revealed. The young man, bewildered, explained that he had left his city only the day before, but the people told him that the ruler he mentioned had died hundreds of years earlier, and the kingdom he described no longer existed. Slowly, the truth settled upon him. Allah had preserved him and his companions through a miracle beyond imagination. This fulfilled Allah's purpose. And thus we made their case known, so that they might know that the promise of Allah is true, and that there is no doubt about the hour. Surah Al Kahf 18:21. He hurried back to the cave, his heart overflowing with awe and fear. When he told the others what had happened, they too realized the magnitude of the miracle they had lived through. Their story spread rapidly through the region. The people of the new city, who were believers, recognized the young men as a living sign from Allah, a proof of resurrection, divine power, and the reality of the unseen. These young men, once hunted by tyrants, had now returned as symbols of faith and spiritual triumph. They understood that their mission in the world had reached its conclusion. They had stood firm in their belief when the world opposed them, and Allah had honored them with a miracle that transcended time. As their hearts rested in peace, Allah allowed them to return to eternal rest, leaving behind a legacy that would inspire believers for generations. The story of Ashabul Kahfi is more than a historical event. It is a message that continues to resonate through every age. It teaches that faith is not defined by numbers, power, or social approval. It is defined by the sincerity of the heart, the courage to uphold truth, and the willingness to trust Allah even when the path ahead seems unclear. Allah praises such sincerity, saying, "Indeed, they were young men who believed in their Lord, and we increased them in guidance." Surah Al Kahf 18:13. These young men lived in a time when belief in Allah was considered dangerous, yet they held firmly to their conviction. Their courage teaches us that standing alone for truth is better than being surrounded by falsehood. Their trust in Allah transformed fear into protection. When they fled to the cave, they did not know what would happen to them, yet they prayed with pure hearts. Allah responded with a miracle that not only protected them, but also preserved their story as a sign of His power. When they sought refuge in the cave, they said, "Our Lord, grant us mercy from yourself and guide us in our affair rightly." Surah Al Kahf 18:10. Through their sleep, Allah showed that He controls time, destiny, and every detail of existence. What appears impossible to humans is effortless for Him. Their patience in hardship reveals another profound truth. Remaining steadfast during trials leads to outcomes beyond human imagination. The young men left their homes expecting nothing more than survival. Instead, Allah honored them with a story that would be remembered until the end of time. Their lives became proof that sacrifice for the sake of Allah never goes unnoticed, and that every believer who places trust in Allah will find a path to peace, even if that path is hidden at first. Their legacy stands as a reminder that true strength comes from faith rooted deeply in the heart. Empires collapse, rulers perish, and the world changes constantly, but sincere belief remains unshaken. The story of the cave reminds us that Allah protects those who remain steadfast, guides those who seek Him sincerely, and honors those who choose truth over comfort. And whoever relies upon Allah, then He is sufficient for him. Surah At-Talaq 65:3. Ashabul Kahfi entered the cave as a small group of persecuted youths, but they emerged in history as symbols of courage, faith, and divine protection. Their journey continues to inspire believers to trust Allah with their fears, to remain patient through trials, and to walk the path of truth even when it feels lonely. Their story is a timeless call to every soul seeking light in a world filled with shadows. Wassalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.